All right, friends, this is a 1949 Studebaker sedan we picked up about a year ago, 6 months, I don't remember. Anyway, I wanted to do just a quick rundown so that you can understand the engineering that went back into putting these cars together back in the day. And not all of this is specifically Studebaker, but they did a few things a little different. But there was a lot of these around. You can't really see it, but the shock is built into that upper control arm. It's like a lever shock or a knee shock, whatever you want to call it. This is a monoleaf suspension. So that means this leaf right here comes and arches up over the cross member and comes back down. So that's your spring suspension. It's a monoleaf, what they call a monoleaf suspension. Let me get this a little better for you here. That's a little easier to see. Anyway, that goes over there. That's your spring, and then your shock is right above there, built into the upper control arm. Let's move on back. A lot of cars had these. This is basically built into the master cylinder, but you can see the clutch pedal arm coming down. I'm sorry, brake pedal arm coming down to the master cylinder right there. That's the master cylinder. And then you have this other funky gig here. That is a hill hold that connects to the throw out lever up there and comes back and pushes this piston right in here. So you can see you got a little plumbing coming out of the master cylinder and then going through that hill hold, which holds everything until you let off of the clutch pedal. Then it'll let that piston go. Then your brakes will let go and you can cruise on down the road if you're on a steep hill. And of course, that's really common right there to have a pressure switch for your brake light up front. Anything else? This has got a solenoid on it. This is a 3-speed tail shaft overdrive. It's mechanical and electric. It's not mechanical over electric. It's mechanical and electric. So right there is your idler gear release. And then you have the solenoid that it engages the overdrive. Not a bad design at all, really. The only major issue with these is the steering. So you have a, right there, you have a stabilizer, comes over to a drag link. Your drag link comes over to another stabilizer that's integrated into the steering gear. This one doesn't have the pivot in the middle. A lot of them pivoted in the middle. But you've got, if you look, let's count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of failure. So it's a little too much, really. Way too much stuff here. Now let's back up to the fuel system. Well, we'll look at the rear end real quick. So here's your knee shocks, your lever shocks for the back end. And if you look here, that's just a monoleaf too. You do it. Well, it looks like it might be a stack. It's probably a stack with a casing on it. They did it as cheap as they could, really, back in the day. And then, of course, that is connected by a link to your shock. Same over here. You got your leaf spring going to a link, going to the shock. That shock saves a lot of room, but they're kind of clunky, junky. They're not good. They don't. Well, you can see that one's got a leak on it. They would leak over time. They just I don't know. They were inadequate. A tall shock, especially if you got a coilover, is so much better. Works for a much better ride. Go back here to the fuel system. Very basic sending unit for the gauge. Just a single wire, earth ground. Line comes up, comes down, goes underneath the frame. Now this is where it gets crazy. We go up here, we come back underneath the frame again. That's been repaired once, you can see. Comes back up here and then goes up to the fuel pump with a sediment bulb. And then you've got your dust cover pans. You pull these dust covers down and drain that sediment bulb and inspect whatever. This has got a fairly new fuel pump on it, but I think the diaphragm's got a little pinhole in it or something. Kingpin suspension right there. Nothing really, nothing fancy. And of course you can see when you have it up in the air, the camber goes bonkers on you. These bushings right here, they will fail sometimes. You have to put new bushings on it and make sure that they're greased. It's, you know, there's a lot of engineering that went into it. This car actually has, pretty common for Studebakers, it has the rear heater. It's got a heater core in there, and then your airflow comes right from here. Then you just got a damper flapper. You just close the flap on it. Somebody's put a dryer vent on this one. I don't know what we'll do with that, but we'll figure something out. Anyway, this car actually is pretty straight. We need to look at the wheel cylinders, the master cylinder, because we got brake issues, and then that fuel pump. Other than that, everything's rocking and rolling. This is really decent. Somebody did a really crappy paint job on it, so we might have to tend to that. Anyway, that's kind of your rundown of 1949, and a lot of them. This is the way a lot of the vehicles were made. So, you know, this particular system electrically is a 6-volt positive ground, which was common back in those days, and I don't know their theory behind that, but yeah, a little silly, and a lot of people screw batteries up and regulators by having a positive ground car and hooking things up incorrectly, and then we have to come in and put a new regulator in it, and a lot of times a new battery. Anyway, shoot some comments if you're interested. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If you have any comments, shoot them to me. Have a great day, folks.